Today on the show, I am speaking with Eileen Applebaum, the founder and creative director of Threads Soft Goods. Eileen shares her unconventional path from being a certified public accountant. See, remember, it's so interesting talking about creatives in the industry who came from other industries to make ours better. It's amazing. Anyway, about being a CPA at a Big Four firm to becoming a prominent figure in the interior design and retail industry, she discussed the concept of dynamic tension, the delicate balance between business acumen and creative expression, and how it's defined her 35-year career. 35-year career in the world of interior design. There is a pervasive myth that one must choose between the left brain rigor of business and the right brain flow of creativity. So interesting. Eileen Applebaum, the founder of Threads Soft Goods, spent 35 years proving that the most sustainable success actually exists in the dynamic tension between the two, which is really incredible. And this also is an introduction to a new feature on the show, which I'm introducing and rolling out softly this year, but you're going to hear it more in earnest next year. It's called Material IQ. It is really an opportunity to gain material intelligence about firms, products, materials in the industry. It's very exciting. Anyway, Applebaum's journey didn't begin at an easel, but at a ledger. Despite a childhood obsession with redecorating, she initially earned a degree in accounting and passed the CPA exam, though she realized within 24 hours of starting at a Big Four firm that it wasn't her calling. She stayed for 3 years. Could you imagine? To earn her certification, a move that provided the foundational armor, if you will, for her future entrepreneurial ventures. So important. Her subsequent 20-year tenure at Crate & Barrel served as a retail laboratory. Rising to become a buyer for textiles and rugs, she mastered the efficiencies of large-scale production. However, as the industry shifted toward a more, let's call it ruthless corporate model, Applebaum sought a return to ethics and craftsmanship. So important. And today, Threads Soft Goods represents the pinnacle of that evolution for her, and eschewing the industry's reliance on synthetic performance fabrics and digital printing. She remains a purist. Now, listen, I just want to make the point. There is nothing wrong with synthetic performance fabrics. I'm a fan, and there's nothing wrong with digital printing. I'm a fan of that too. But I do think that there is what do we want to call this? A purist movement. This just speaks to the fact that there are clients for every product, and there should be a product for every client. You know, her collections are defined by heritage, techniques, hand-beaded metal embroidery, natural fibers sourced from artisans in India and the Philippines. By partnering with Brownlee Curry of Curry & Company, she's merged her boutique creative vision with a high-level organizational structure. And a recent move to the New York Design Center marks a new chapter, proving that in a world of fast-moving trends, there's still a massive appetite for products with a soul, a story, and a spreadsheet certified foundation. Anyway, Eileen and I talk about a lot, and it's a fun conversation, and it's informative. And if you're not familiar with Eileen and her work of Threads Soft Goods, I'm thrilled to introduce you, and you're going to hear it all right after this. At the highest level of design, the absolute best specifying designers, architects, landscape designers are all highly focused on the technology and performance of products and materials today. You have to, because the products you specify for your projects have to perform and they have to last. That's one of the reasons why I am so proud to be working with TimberTech. Their focus on the technical renaissance of synthetic decking is literally changing the conversation about innovation and performance. It pulls focus on three priorities homeowners have and expect from the products their designers and architects specify for their luxury projects. 1. Aesthetics must match the overall design and fit visually. 2. Durability and maintenance. I've told you about my board flipping stories from my own wood decks. Clients not only want beauty, but they want ease and ease of use, and they want it to last for decades. 3. Sustainably made. Clients are more conscious of the environment now, and they want the same of their materials. TimberTech hits each one of these elements with a product that not only meets expectations, they exceed them. TimberTech makes a synthetic decking that looks just like wood, color and embossed wood grain for a natural appearance. Their composite decking is technologically superior, as it has been created to last for decades, and it's manufactured with up to 85% recycled material. Their advanced PVC, vintage, and landmark collections have a Class A flame spread rating, making these products an amazing choice for wildfire-prone areas, which unfortunately continues to grow on the risk map. Check the show notes for more information about this and to find the nearest showroom or lumberyard where you can find TimberTech, or you can check them out directly, timbertech.com. I will tell you that I absolutely love first-timers on the show.
Oh, really?
I really do. I love that you have not done a podcast yet. It's a rarity these days, but I love it. Do me a favor. I mean, give me the backstory.
The backstory of Threads and myself and how I ended up sitting here in a podcast.
However you interpret backstory, that's what I want.
Well, I guess I would say I'm a study in contrast, that somehow in my younger years, I was geared towards business. I ended up being an accounting major in college. I have absolutely no idea why. And I think I was just good at math. So I was just always kind of pushed in that direction. It was probably one day into being a CPA in one of the big firms that I was like, what have I done? What am I doing? And on the side, probably since I'm 10 years old, I've had this passion for interior design, and it was like a hobby. I never really even considered it as a profession. I had a professional set of parents, a real estate broker and a lawyer. And there was just nothing in the creative realm in our world that would indicate to me that that was an option for me. So I really didn't pursue it, other than constantly redecorating my room, asking my mother to take me to decorator show houses at 11 years old, just completely had it as the main passion of my outside academic life. And it wasn't until I started working in accounting that I'm like, this isn't working. So I ended up applying and getting into design school, and leaving accounting and starting to work at Crate and Barrel in what was then the one and only furniture store in Cambridge, Massachusetts. It was the home store, the furniture division that was going to end up marrying to the housewares division that was already fully fleshed out. And it was kind of this laboratory store in Cambridge that then joined up and became the home brand that everybody knows. And I started working there as a salesperson to finance my way through design school, and really ended up loving retail and really ended up loving the kind of hands-on experience of that. So the scale started kind of tipping more towards, maybe I don't need to be an interior designer. I can continue to take classes and develop my eye, but I would sort of pursue retail, and ended up doing that and moved back to New York. I was in Boston at the time, moved back to New York, worked at ABC Carpet, a seminal, at a peak time for ABC Carpet, being the biggest home emporium in the world, probably at its peak moment. And it was just creative immersion. And I met someone there who was the creative director at the time. And we ended up opening our own antique store. And I like every job I've had really since leaving accounting has taken me more into the creative realm, but always as sort of the business person in a creative space. But ultimately developing my confidence and developing my own aesthetic until, I mean, now I'm the creative director and founder of a very creative brand. So it's, I've been doing this for 35 years, so it's not, it didn't happen overnight, but I was a buyer at Crate and Barrel for all textiles and rugs. That was even more creative. Then I owned my own business, like it's just been this evolution. And to me, it always boils back to this, what I call dynamic tension, this blend of art and commerce, this business and creative, this kind of tension that I think creates an optimal thing. That if I were a lot of people who start businesses who are purely creative and don't know the business, don't succeed. Or someone's all business and not creative. And they struggle in different ways. I feel like I'm very left brain, right brain. And that's been kind of my unique offering, I guess, is that I have this strong business sense with an accounting degree and all of that, and the creative side. And now I'm in my full expression of my creative self, and it's the peak of my career for sure.
So you actually completed the degree in accounting.
I did. I even took the CPA exam, and I was so miserable when I took it and knew I wanted to leave that I said, if I don't pass, I'm out. But I passed. I was like, nuts. Now you have to work in accounting for 3 years in order for that certification to be valid. I'm like, I can't have come this far and have passed the exam and not actually become a CPA, with the certifications that come with it. So I stuck it out for 3 years and 1 day and started design school 1 day later, literally.
Did you
So
complete design? Did you complete design school?
No, I never did. I continued in Boston. I went to the New England School of Art and Design there for a year. And then when I moved back to New York, I continued taking classes at the New York School of Interior Design, but really it was at that point more of a pleasure and learning thing for my own benefit, but was already immersed in kind of a different career trajectory. And knew that really the idea of retail being, here's our creative statement, come take a look and buy it or don't buy it, versus putting a storyboard together to convince one particular customer, this is what your house should look like. I sort of liked the, definitiveness of being a retailer and making a presentation and saying, this is my point of view. And if you like it, buy something, more than trying to convince someone of my vision for their home or whatever. I just think it ultimately, the skills helped me, but the actual task of being an interior designer probably didn't suit me that well.
You started Thread Soft Goods when?
It's had a couple of iterations. It started out as what was called Threads Group. It was me and a business partner. I had left Crate and Barrel after 20 years of being a rug and textile buyer and living in Chicago. And that was sort of my dream job. And a woman that had been our main colorist and outside designer had retired when I left Crate and had moved back to New York. And visiting her out in Santa Barbara, she's like, I'm a little bored. I thought I'd want to be retired. If you're doing anything and, want to do something together, let's do it. So we started Threads to put our own collection together. And we were selling to large retailers, Crate and Barrel included, textiles. But it was still kind of the same in the sense that I knew what the price points were that I had to achieve. I knew the aesthetic of the brand that I was mostly selling to, and really selling into their vision. And they were the reason I had left Crate and why even selling to them wasn't a great idea was that I was seeing this move towards big business. That for all the years that I was at Crate, the story was create beautiful product with reliable vendor partners, care about your customers, care about your vendors, care about your employees, and be passionate about product and presentation, and success will come. That was kind of the homework assignment. All of a sudden, meetings were like, we need this margin, we need that, like we weren't talking about the very thing that had brought me to Chicago and leave New York, my beloved favorite place in the whole world, and had this dream job. All of a sudden, it was becoming different kinds of choices and different kinds of meetings. And it was no longer people, product, and presentation first. It was kind of business first. And I was like, you know what? I've had a good run here. I think it's time for me to sort of move on. So when Stu and I started this Threads group, it was my chance to sort of do what I wanted, but I was still doing it for Craig. And I was still,
in what year? What year was this?
2007, maybe, or something like that.
Okay. So this is kind of where I wanted to go. So you really start the business on your own. You hang the shingle. You start putting pillows together.
Yeah.
Textiles. You start doing this in around 2007.
Yeah.
Not a great time to start a business.
Yes and no.
Or was it?
It was, I think, like I said at the beginning, this kind of dynamic tension or this opposites thing. Because I knew mass production and kind of the efficiencies of large scale production, I was able to utilize my skill set to create I sort of knew what the audience wanted. You know what I mean? And I had established good connections in my 20 years of being in the industry, that I could really work with the best vendors and be very efficient in my pricing. Companies like Crate, if they have a good year or a bad year, they still are ordering millions and millions and millions of dollars of product. So if you can get in on that, they're ordering something. Do you know what I mean? Like they're still ordering product, and they still seasonally are refreshing their stores with all kinds of things. So because they were the main company I was selling to, we were able to make it work. But it still had a lot of the realities of big business that on a personal level wasn't fulfilling me in the same way. There was more cutthroaty, like it wasn't the environment that I had grown to love at Crate, and the pride I took in working there, that it was such an ethical company, beloved by every vendor, would die to do business with them. Like it was just a different time. And I don't want to disparage them in any way. I had a great run. They're still an amazing company.
And that's
it
fine.
It wasn't aligned with me anymore, with how businesses needed I guess part of the Amazon effect, I guess I would say, of companies just needed to be a lot more ruthless in a certain way, and needed to be.
That. I totally get that. I totally get that. Now where I'm going, what I'm interested in is, and what I think is fascinating, is you've got this two sides, which is rarely, I talk to a lot of designers, and oftentimes designers they all come up in a few distinct ways. They go to design school, they get hired as a junior designer, they work their way up. They go to design school, they hang a shingle. They don't go to design school, they get a job as an intern or a junior buyer, and they work their way up that way.
Yep.
They start a career as something else. I've spoken to a former agent of CAA. I've spoken to former lawyers, accountants, actors, athletes. I mean, it's incredible how all these people from different groups come to the same point at some time. What's interesting is you have an education system. The design school system doesn't teach business.
Right.
And without an understanding of how business works, and that's what a lot of designers learn when they start as junior designers in a firm. But no school, design school, architecture, accounting, business, there's no MBA class on the Great Recession.
Mhm.
There is no class on total and complete political chaos. There's no class that teaches that, except the class of the real world, the
Yeah.
school of hard knocks.
School of
So
Hard Knocks.
you
Yeah.
come through the Great Recession and a housing crisis. And for those who are in the business who started before, I was in radio during 9/11. My job was to market, sell advertising, and work with brands. And I remember JetBlue was one of my clients. And I had a conversation at the time. I've never really talked about this, but I had a conversation at the time talking to a client at JetBlue, and they were like, "We're just stopping." And I said, I don't understand that. How do you just stop? The wheel has to keep turning. So here we are in this business environment now. You've kind of got your legs up under you during the Great Recession, this housing crisis, this financial disaster. How do you navigate in a world where you have to be creative, but you also have to be creative in the way that you look at the business that you're running? You're a boutique firm. You're not a major conglomerate.
Right.
Major conglomerates can weather storms and they can ride things out. How do you think about where we are today, where we have been since last April in the business climate, in the business community? What does that mean to you? How do you think about the business? How do you operate?
Well, I think part of the iteration of what Threads is today, Threads soft goods, different from Threads group, is that I pivoted away from selling to mass retailers and pivoted to take this. I had amassed a very extensive collection of vintage and antique fabrics that I had collected over my entire 30 years, adult life, I would say 40 years of collecting fabrics. And I was like, I got to do something with all this fabric. I'm not really loving putting collections together for mass retailers where it's all about cutting costs and, all these things. So I'm going to lean more into kind of, let's call it an Etsy shop, a little more boutique-y sized, higher end business. And I don't say this with great pride, but I have never focused on the luxury end of the business. I've always been more in the mass middle market. And the reality is the luxury end of the market's a little more recession proof. And the ups and downs that I learned, particularly at my time at Crate, where I have vivid memories of Gordon and Barbara, the CEO and president, founders of the company, gathered all the buyers together that morning and were like, okay, market just crashed. Everyone needs to look at their orders that are in the pipeline already. What can we ask the vendors to hold off on? What can we ask the vendors to slow down the shipping? What can we do to partner, to lean on all these relationships around the world? How can we be good partners and not sort of screw anybody, but how can we be good partners and ask them to really step up and help us? And we had lots of conversations with all these vendors, and we learned what can we do? How do we tighten the screws and get really smart? And we're not flying. We're not, the buyers can't go on big fancy trips. Buyers were offering to share rooms on trips, shorten the number of days we're going. Like everybody sort of pitched in. And it was a teamwork, a company that was very familial in its culture. So there was lots of like, oh, my department can do this. Oh, we can do that. We don't have to do that. So I came from this learning around that. But even still, as I've jumped into this more luxury end of the business, yes, there are realities, but we've only seen growth, to be honest with you, since we started this version. We started in January of 2024. So we've completed 2 years, and we have had a nice, steady rise in the business. I'm selling a vintage and antique line of pillows, one of a kind, that are here in my New York showroom. And I'm selling a line of, let's call them program pillows, that I stock in a warehouse in Atlanta. And but I'm mostly selling to interior designers, high-end boutiques, etc. So it is far less sensitive to the downturns in the economy. That's just real. I mean, dance around that, but that's just the reality of it. And we've enjoyed, I think because we offered something, because of my knowledge of the market, I felt like I found a niche that wasn't really being addressed where I can utilize my knowledge of mass market production, addressing a more luxury price point, and that I could, even at the luxury end, offer an amazing value for the amount of handwork that we're doing because I know the efficiencies of manufacturing. And that has been a unique, I hear all the time from my customers, yes, it's a $350 or $450 pillow, but they're seeing it as a, wow, they're happily surprised at our prices.
So one of the things that is kind of a trap from switching from the major retailer model to the individual specifier model
Mm-hmm.
is the individual specifier is far more susceptible to the trends. And it's funny, not funny, haha, but just funny, ironic to me
Yeah.
that you have individual creative thinkers who go out and start a creative business and then trade nonstop in the business of trend. Like I call it the silly season, and we're just coming out of this now. I talk about it a lot on the show. And I learned this from radio. It's lists, it's listicles. So between October through March, April. And I just saw one the other day, House Beautiful L. They trade heavily in this area. Here are the top 10 things you're going to see in kitchen design this year. Here are the top 5 things you're never going to see again. Here's what top designers say are never to be used again. And it's so bogus. It's ridiculous. It really is ridiculous because you have creatives whose job it is to listen to their clients. If you're listening to your clients and designing appropriately to your client needs and wants and desires, and we are a desire industry. If you're a designer speaking to that, what a magazine editor decides to post as a listicle or, a top 5 or a top 10 or whatever should not make one bit of difference to you. And certainly, I'm always surprised that any designer worth their salt would add their name to a list like that, like participate in it.
Yeah.
But the reason I'm asking is because you are street level. You are ground level. It's not a matter of like, you could be working with a major retailer who will buy inventory for the fall selling season now, right? So they're buying what they're buying, which is going to be what's stocked. When you're dealing with a designer, you're dealing with the trade. They're like, well, I love that. I love that pillow with the organic shapes. And it's like, or the geometric shapes. And it's like, oh, geometric. I just saw AD had a post on AD Pro, or
Yeah.
geometric shapes are out. Well, I can't do that now. But you're buying material. You're creating a product. How do you distance yourself from that? And sometimes when you can't distance yourself from it, how do you wade through it?
I 100% distance myself from it. Trends are, I don't want to say meaningless to me. I feel like cultural trends are interesting to me, like how people are living and things like that. Or, oh, Bridgerton's popular, like whatever the sort of general cultural interests are and shifts, color and material. And I'm much in my personal aesthetic, I'm much more traditional. I follow my inspiration and I follow my personal passion because I have such a massive collection of indigenous antique fabrics. Much of my inspiration comes from that. Most of my product is made in India. So I'm in India and I'm only seeing heritage techniques and I'm only focusing on the handmade and going into emporiums that focus on individual states, what handcrafts is that state good at. And I'm like, oh, that's an interesting technique. I'm not a social media person. Like, I'm just not interested in the trends. If anything, I just had a conversation with someone yesterday saying how if I hear on Instagram, I mean, I look at Instagram, but more for like puppy photos and, things like that. And if I hear the best slice of pizza in New York, that is the definition of where I will never go. Like, I'm not interested in the trends. I feel like I used to like learning about them and sort of filtering through that. It's like suicide to me now. It's just the minute the social media machine has its way, it's just you're either dead or you're peaking. Like it went from 0 to 1,000 in miles an hour, or it was arrested development at 0 and it goes nowhere. It's like, so I don't even pay attention to any of that. I don't care at all. If you ask me what is the color trend, I literally have nothing to say about that. Like, I don't.
You are listening to my conversation with Eileen Applebaum of Threads Soft Goods. We'll be right back. If you've listened to the show for any amount of time, you've heard me say this, that the most important word in the design industry is service. Product is important, price is important, selection is important, but stellar service is the premier idea that can make all the difference in the success of a project, any project. How design professionals like you demand great service and your favorite brands in one place with expert, knowledgeable, and non-commission sales professionals. It's really important. It means that their only incentive is your satisfaction. Pacific Sales, Kitchen and Home, a Best Buy company, has just that with over 60 years of experience in Southern California. Pacific Sales is your destination for exploration, advice, and inspiration. Now, you have the Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home team to help you and offer their Pro Rewards program, which is a trade program unlike any you have experienced before. Earn 3% in Best Buy gift cards, e-gift cards, or 2.5% in rewards checks for every qualified and delivered sale. In addition to special trade pricing, exclusive offers, access to exclusive special events, and so much more than I could possibly tell you about here. And the cherry on top is access to exclusive builder trade incentives from top brands and the stellar service, again, from a company that has been serving the industry for over 60 years. Terms and conditions apply to the Pro Rewards program and builder trade incentives. So visit a Pacific Sales expert at a showroom today for full details and to learn how you can unlock additional savings and benefits. Don't miss out on the opportunity to work with the best of the best. Visit Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home today and elevate your projects to new heights. The design industry is in the midst of a generational and fundamental change. If you're in the biz, you feel it. I know you do. We all do. Just about every aspect of the industry is growing, changing, and turning into something entirely different due to a number of factors that, not to go into here, but between tariffs and supply chain and political influence, just clients have changed. Pricing has changed. Everything about the industry has changed, except for one thing: the need for strong design and architecture communities. And that's what led to the creation of Shelter Republic, an online community exclusively for the design and architecture communities, a place to engage with other like-minded creatives outside of the prying eyes of clients and the media. Wouldn't you like to belong to a nurturing community where you can have those real, challenging, authentic conversations, watch exclusive design-focused content, take free courses to level up your design business, hear from experts in the industry, guiding you and helping you move ever forward? And it's free to join. No catch, but it's invitation only. This is not like maybe some other programs you've heard of before where you pay a fee, a sizable fee, and go through a quasi-vetting process only to get there and realize that you're kind of just paying for an ad. That is not what this is. If you're a designer or an architect, you qualify. If you want in, email convobydesign@outlook.com and type Shelter Republic in the subject line. That's it. An invitation to join will follow. Call this the anti-social media platform where you can meet, engage, and share ideas in a safe, closed community environment of like-minded creatives. That's what this is. And like I said, it's free to join. Send an email, confobydesign@outlook.com. Subject line is Shelter Republic. It's that simple. And like I said, it's free to join. See you there. So that being said, and because you shifted the model really from large retail to individual designer to the trade, it's such a challenge when dealing with the trade, getting responses. And it's not I'm trying to figure out how to say this correctly. A few years ago on the show, I was talking, the number was 120. 120.
120 what?
120 was the percentage of time creatives that I was speaking to. And I mean, look, as of now, I've done over 700 episodes. I've had over 1,000 people on the show. I mean, I've spoken to a lot of people over the years. And it started pre-pandemic. It was 120 was the percentage of time that designers were allocating of their business time that they had allocated to work on the business. And what does that mean? It's like, well, you only have 100%. 120 meant that they were pulling from time with the kids, time with the family, time on travel, time on the weekends, time after hours. If a designer allocates 9 a to 5 p, and that is their workday, and they're working now because they got to chase down specification and they got to respec something, and they're working 7 a to 7 p. Well, now they're taking 2 extra hours in the morning and 2 extra hours in the afternoon that was allocated for yoga or for walking the dog or for playing with the kids or going to a soccer game or doing something else. I would argue that because remote working and social media have become so normalized and pervasive, that 120 is probably 200. It's just, there is no more time. There is no more time because now you have creatives who have realized, designers like, I have to go market myself. I have to be on social media. I have to go to shows. I have to,
Be seen. Yeah. But
be seen. I have to stay up on things. And it's really interesting. How do you, as a small company,
Mhm.
it takes you longer to break through to specifiers. It takes, you're sending out samples or you're talking to clients about, hey, what projects do you have? How can I help? Or you're working the trade program and trying to get new designers in. And your trade program does require a minimum buy-in, which most do. But now getting them into the trade program also requires specification. How do you do that? How do you navigate the time constraints and still manage the creative side of the business?
Well, I would say that is time management is real and challenging. One of the things I didn't mention is that long ago, in my years at Crate as a buyer, I met Curry and Company, which is a very big lighting company. I'm sure you know. Curry was a big supplier to Crate back then, like in the late 90s or even late 80s for that matter. So I knew Robert Curry long ago, and his son, Brownlee Curry, now runs Curry and Company. Robert is retired. So I've known them for 30 years. And when I'd go to High Point as a textile or rug buyer, I would stop in the Curry showroom and say hi. And we've known each other over the years and had a very friendly rapport. When I was thinking that Threads Group was not kind of a go forward plan and was in the process of figuring out that I wanted to start this vintage and antique fabric pillow business, I got into, Brownlee got in touch with me and said, I hear you might be free to do some consulting. I would like to put a collection together of pillows for Curry as an added category in the Curry showrooms. So he hired me as a consultant to go to India for him and put a collection together. And in so doing, this collection came into being. And in the process of he and I talking about it, he said, now that I'm thinking about it, maybe it makes more sense for Threads to kind of resurrect as not just the vintage and antique pillows, but now let's make it a new company that's both the running line and the vintage and antique pillows. So we created together Threads Soft Goods, which is a partnership between Brownlee Curry and myself. So uh, I've had, if I had to pick a person, I feel like I've met a unicorn that I'm so lucky. Brownlee is not only an incredibly good person and highly respected in the industry, he's a merchant at his heart, as am I, and is both a very savvy, smart businessman and a creative. And he runs Curry in a very similar way with certain other strengths and skills that I don't have with his knowledge of e-commerce and some of the other things, but approaches his business as a product business. It isn't just a financial pursuit and it isn't just a creative pursuit. It's that dynamic tension of the two. And he's a very successful company. And I've had the benefit of his wisdom and experience, as well as his, let's call it, organizational structure. So I've been doing pop-up showroom spaces in his showrooms at High Point and Atlanta, and had that benefit. I warehouse in his warehouses in Atlanta. So I've had kind of a unique opportunity to get kind of some of the economies of scale and some of the benefits of being larger while being a small business. He has 100% left us alone to run for me to have full creative control of the assortment, but he is the best in-house consultant I could possibly have. He's not only as I said, a very good person. I'm proud to have him as my partner, but just really savvy and well respected and well connected after running Curry for most of his life. So I sort of, as a result, have a little bit of, I would say, armor around me that has allowed me to navigate as a small business, but I get to show in a very well respected and highly trafficked showroom at High Point twice a year that everybody visits, that's in the main building, the things like that I wouldn't be able to afford. I would also say having a good reputation in this industry and having made a lot of alliances and friendships over the years, lots of people have pitched in to help me. So when I couldn't afford a showroom space at High Point when I was doing it by myself, a very dear friend who's in the rug business let me have some space in his rug showroom. I've just been lucky to leverage relationship. And I say to the people who work for me, as I mentor them and hope that they'll carry the torch of this industry of ethics and good behavior and good governance and all of that, I say to them, every choice that you make, you need to be sure that in 30 years from now, you're not going to regret it. That your reputation is the one thing you can control. That you can't control a lot of things. But if you make choices that align with your ethics, come what may, and you'll be fine. And I feel like I've enjoyed my affiliation with Crate, which enjoyed such an incredible ethical reputation in the industry. But as someone who was very suited to that company and now associated with Curry, which is of a very similar cultural commitment, means a lot to me and has allowed me to navigate making good choices, taking good care of my vendors, being a good partner, just overall, just taking really good care of my customers, being very service oriented, kind of old school. I hate to say it, but kind of old school, transaction by transaction. Every customer experience matters to me. Following up, sending handwritten thank you notes. Like we really go out of our way at a neurotic level to, be a good partner, and to be a good person, said simply. And
So let me ask you something. How do you, and part of it is, and I'm realizing this in real terms right now too. This year we started something called Shelter Republic through Convo by Design, and Shelter Republic is a closed designer community. So what I mean by that is, it is It's free. It is open to designers, architects, landscape architects, makers, but they have to be invited. And the reason for that is because there are so many, like if you go on Facebook, who's on Facebook? But if you go to Facebook, and there are countless numbers of Facebook groups where you can see designers. And what people don't realize is like even people outside the group can still see commentary when designers are sharing things. And you will get such comments that you cannot believe somebody is actually saying this in a public forum. But when you get designers and specifiers in general in a small room to start talking about how they really feel, you start to get an understanding of what it means to be a community. And I think right now our community, that is the specifying community, designers, architects, showrooms, manufacturers, makers, as an industry, as a community, we were caught off guard by many of everyone was caught off guard by many of the things that have happened. I guess that's when there is a shock to the system. I think almost everyone's caught off guard, except those who are counterintuitive, who think a little bit differently about the way things are. Right now, there is such a shift in the not just the business practice, but the thinking of the industry. It's completely shifted from, and I think millennials had a lot to do with this in the way that they buy or design or choose to have design around them. But there is such a difference in how things, like the word luxury has thousands of different meanings. It means what the client thinks it means. So the
Right.
designer has to be unique and different in the way that they approach the storytelling and the purpose. We've gone from things that are just hyper luxurious and beautiful and stunningly gorgeous to more functional, more of a wellness approach. Um, we go through certain ideas that I don't think are necessarily trends, but the biophilic idea where, plants, even in paint, even in fabrics, even in pillows, I'm sure you've seen that. This idea of wellness and design and making sure you're talking about ethical practices in business, which is absolutely important, but also thinking about the wellness of those who are going to be living with these textiles in their homes for years. How do you think about that? How do you upscale and uplevel the and I guess we would call it the functionality. I mean, when you look at a pillow, you think, oh well, the functionality, the function of a pillow is to be comfortable, but that's not it. There's far more to it than that. How do you uplevel the functionality of the product?
What's coming to my mind is the outdoor, outdoor lifestyle or whatever, that this whole decorating the outside has become this massive business with performance fabrics, as an example. I'm not willing to participate in that. I'm asked at every single market numerous times, are any of these pillows usable for outdoor? I can't comfortably use performance fabric that is made out of petroleum and isn't good for your health. I just am not willing to do it. And so I continue to investigate. I just was working with a factory in the Philippines, maybe Abaca or something, like trying to come up with my version. Everything I do is handmade and everything I do is natural materials. I don't have anything synthetic in my assortment. I use metal zippers versus plastic zippers. I use, every detail. I try to be as aligned with what I say I'm going to be, and not, and just, I really am a believer in run your own race. Like, do what you believe, stick to your passion. I've just gotten started in pillows. It's only been 2 years. I could expand and scale by adding bedding. I could expand and scale by adding other categories, napkin sets. We're talking about wall art. There's lots of things we can do in the realm of handmade, natural material, fiber based products, but staying true to who we are, which is handmade and natural materials. and an absolute neurotic level of attention to detail. So it's, there isn't synthetic in the back fabric just to cheapen it up, or use a poly lining or any other. The full revolution of the front and the back of the pillow look exactly the same. Gorgeous metal zipper, beautiful decorative zipper pull. Like, it's all about the details for us. Beautiful handmade trims, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not interested in digital printing, as an example. These two pillows right here are they're silk shibori. Each piece of fabric is silk that is actually tied and dyed, old school. I could easily take my favorite among them, digitally print that one, and have 1,000 of the exact same pillow every time with total consistency and color fastness. I choose not to do that. I could make more money doing it that way, etc. It's not what I'm about. What I'm about is handmade and natural materials, full stop. So if it doesn't align with those things, it doesn't align with what we're doing, and we're not going to pursue it. So I feel like the challenge today is how not to bend to what everybody else is doing, is to not bend to digital printing, to not bend to performance fabrics, etc. Let other people.
Well, wait a minute though.
Other people doing that.
Is the challenge not to bend, and maybe is the challenge also to tell that story? How do you tell the story? And again, if you're running a business and you're making product, you're working with the trade, you're selling product, you're planning for your high point trip, how do you tell the story?
Well, storytelling's the main. If someone hears the story of my products and sees them in person, a sale happens. It's as simple as that. There's such an appreciation when people hear, "Oh my God, that's all hand beadwork. That's metal embroidery thread, like real metal, not Lurex, not some plastic to look like metal. That is real metal, micro thin metal embroidery thread that is hand embroidered, and then metal beads." It's like unbelievable amount of detail and work. And so if I'm there, if my colleagues are there, the product sells. But how do you scale that? How do you tell that story? We started a small thing called Pillow Talk, where I was
that was the next on my list. I was like, you did 3 episodes. Come on.
Then we just got busy. We just moved to the design center. Busted. I'm not going to lie. We started, it was going great, and we literally just had 8 million things to do. We put a lot of effort into a catalog. Our photography in our catalog is, I'm just going to grab one quick, but the photography is beautiful. Most of it is either shot outdoor, but it's very graphic and very close up, high-end photography. And I think from a visual point of view, I have no problem telling the stories. The bigger challenge is how things are made. It is the thing I'm most passionate about. And whether it's me finding the time now that we've moved and we're in this new space, is reactivating Pillow Talk and, really leaning into that. I had some of the vendors shoot video, and we're going to try to do over narrations and add that into the product on the web. Ultimately, I don't think the website's the vehicle that we're counting on for sales. I think it's an informational tool. I have sales reps, the Curry sales reps have also embraced our product. And the more I can train them and share my passion with them, that's the key to success for us, is conveying the stories.
And sometimes, it's so frustrating. Sometimes you spend so much time, I don't mean you, but one would spend so much time working on the catalog, working on the move, working on everything that you're working on, that you pay the opportunity cost.
100%.
And
100%.
If I could pinpoint one thing where I think the industry is really struggling right now, it's opportunity cost.
100%. And what I think is interesting is so many people, when I started Threads Group as this little website, I had to photograph every single image, the front, the back, the 2 detail shots, crop it, get it up, write copy, enter it all into the platform, And I'm like, what? Like, and people would say, oh my God, starting in your garage, you can start a business. It is so data heavy now. The amount of data points that you have to get into a Shopify or whatever in order to be able to, how much does every single pillow cover weigh? With the box, without the box, to be on Perigold, to be on your own website. There are things, like Upwork and Fiverr and places like that where you can hire people to just be your data entry people in essence, because there is so much to get one SKU up is a massive effort. It really is. So how does a small business do it? I'm working a lot and it has come at a cost. And, part of our move here to the New York Design Center 2 weeks ago was obviously to increase our visibility to the design community, but it's also to grow sales to the point where I'm not doing that stuff anymore. Like that's the whole point, is it's the opportunity cost of what we're not doing that's hard to deal with when you're a brand new business. I
And
hope
it's
now.
interesting. You know what's fascinating is what you're describing is a perfect role for AI. Have you engaged in that way yet?
A little bit, sometimes with copywriting, a little bit. We'll sort of throw in some information and get out whatever, so it turns my not so great writing into improved writing. But at the end of the day, I'm still going to tweak it, and they didn't get this quite right, or we'll sort of do that. It's saving me a little bit of time, but from a photography point of view, I don't know if we'll get to the place. It doesn't bring me joy doing the photo shoot on location in a gorgeous Chinese scholars garden in a botanical garden. Like that's the inspiration can't be duplicated that we get from that, with the koi fish swimming and the little bridge and the whole, so much magic happens there that I don't think you can replicate that in AI. But might there be some sort of middle ground somewhere between product shots that are more dry, informational shots, and total creative photo on site, on location photo shoots? Is there some middle ground that can help us? There probably is. And, as I said, Curry brings us a lot of efficiencies. And I think they've got far more expertise in the realm of e-commerce certainly than I have. I'm as untech savvy as anybody. So I'm grateful to have their wisdom and consult, available to me.
So what's next?
What's next is being in the New York Design Center for me personally is a milestone. This is the beginning of chapter 2 for us. We have worked our tails off for 2 years, showing it 4 shows a year, small little antique shows to show that collection here in the New York area, the Ticking Tent. Now it's really leaning into, we've got this we just got to 100 SKUs. We just got, we're about to launch at High Point a whole new group of items. And now, like, getting the sales engine really going, and then considering other categories. We're in a little jewel box of a space here, but I think we've probably done more business in this 2-week period of time of walk-in traffic than the entire 2 years prior in our old space. That we were more reliant on the shows to bring us customers. We were in a non-trade building before. So unless I could lure a designer into the space, it was hard to get people to come in, just people weren't coming. So,
And do you use reps for the remainder of the country?
yes.
You do. So you have full coverage.
There were some holes in the map, but I would say for the most part, we've got, on the East Coast, we've got great. In the South, we've got great. I think West Coast, in the middle, we're a little light.
It's always the middle, isn't it?
Any
It's always the middle. It's funny too, because you talk about opportunity cost, and and living in Tulsa, I see this firsthand. What I've always called the design flyovers, right? And it's so funny because you have this huge circle in the middle of the country that is just it's it's not a design wasteland, but it feels like it from both coasts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. I lived in Chicago for 7 years, and the Mart's incredible. I feel like that's, it would be logical eventually that we would have some visibility in there. But there seem to be more of what I'll call like second cities that are starting to have design centers. And I want to sit down and strategize around, rather than having a rep in those places, is it better to get placement in, let's say, an upholstery showroom or something like that, that would benefit from having the pillows, and, sort of partner with them to help train their staff to sell it or something like that. We don't have a hard time selling when people see the product. Like, that seems to be that each product has, I don't know, I'm going to call it a surprise and delight feature. Whether it's, we have the pattern, we have a snake pillow, it's called Charmer, and the tail, is embroidered on the back. So it looks like it's sort of wrapping around, or, some really interesting, clever zipper pull, or just something. And I feel like the minute people see it, there's like this kind of feel good factor that kicks in, and they're like, I love it. The bird pillow, this, that, whatever, that, if I can get to people and they see the product in person, it really sells itself. So, just getting more eyeballs on it. So I hope being here in the New York Design Center is a major move. All indicators for the first 2 weeks are very positive. So I'm hopeful that this will be a beginning of kind of chapter 2 for us.
I love that. I love that. And I love this. Eileen, this was so much fun. Thank you for taking the time today.
That was my pleasure.
I loved hearing the story.
Absolutely my pleasure. I enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you, Eileen. Amazing. Love your story, love the product, and I appreciate the time. I really do. Thank you to my incredible partner sponsors, Pacific Sales Kitchen and Home, TimberTech, James Hardy, Best Buy, and Shelter Republic. Their sponsorship of Convo by Design allows me to seek out sublime design stories from beyond the work itself and showcase unique personalities, chasing new ideas, and changing the way we think about design and architecture, and present it to you. So please give them an opportunity on your next project. Thank you for listening and sharing this journey of ours. 2026 marks 13 years of constant publication of the podcast, with over 700 interviews, thousands of designers and architects. So much fun, but couldn't do it without you. I wouldn't want to. So please keep those guest suggestions coming, as well as thoughts about where you would like to see the show record live. Convo by Design at outlook.com, and on Instagram at Convo by Design with an X. And remember, if you're in the design industry, if you're a designer, architect, maker, showroom manager, if you're in the industry and you want to join Shelter Republic, this little community of ours, please do send me a note, email me, reach out on Instagram, and let me know you want an invitation, and I will send you a link, because it's free, but you must be invited. Thanks again for listening. Until next time, be well, stay focused and driven, so you can rise above this chaos.